Hey, welcome back. Hope you're all well. Thanks for joining the channel again. Good to see you. Today I got a little bit something different. I picked this up yesterday. This is a local find. It was on Kijiji, and if I told you what I paid for it, you probably all start crying. This is a HP 8640B signal generator. This is an early model. I believe it goes up to 512 megahertz from 500 kilohertz to 512 megahertz. It does have one option installed. It's the reverse power protection for 50 watts, and it doesn't have any other protection. But it does have its problems. I did try it out yesterday, and it's kind of partially working. It's not really all there, and it does need work. It needs a lot of work. It came with spare parts. There's a fan, screen for the fan, and the lid for the divider filter assembly is missing all the screws, and they're gone. And so we'll get to that in a bit. But let's turn it on and try it out. Reduce peak power. Okay. For some reason that was cranked up. So the output power seems to go through its ranges, and when I crank it up and I turn up the volume, it does give me a warning for reduced peak power, which tells me it is producing a signal, but the meter is not working. I have no deflection on the meter, very little, if anything. And I don't know what I need to do to get this meter working. So that's one problem I'm looking at. Next problem, we can tune the frequency. I don't know if it's correct. For this range I'm in, from the range from 64 megahertz to 128 megahertz, I can tune from 57.2 all the way up to 137.56. So it goes beyond the band which specifies, which is okay. Now the problem here is I can't flip this range switch. It is stuck, and I think I was doing a little bit of reading about these, and there is some nylon gears inside here, and they tend to crack and break, but I can't move. I don't want to force it because I don't want to snap anything inside. All the other controls seem to work. FM deviation from 5 kilohertz all the way up to 640, actually 505.12 megahertz deviation. I don't know why you'd ever want to use that much deviation. Usually you're going to be on FM, you're going to be on the low end of that band. It does have output level working, RF on, off. The pilot lamp is burned out on this thing. It doesn't glow. AM modulation, FM modulation, and the adjustments for it. So this is all modulation. This is tuning and range, and this is output level. It's got a frequency counter and a fine tune. I don't even know if this works. It doesn't seem to do anything. Let me try tuning in a frequency here, 100. And this fine tuning thing doesn't seem to have any effect on it. So I've got a few things here going on. Fine tuning, range switch, a dead meter. Don't know what else to... Everything else seems to work. These switches are all dirty, so I'll need to get onto doing something with those. Phase lock, I don't understand anything with regards to that. These three buttons have something to do with the frequency counter. I'm not really sure. So let's open it up, have a look inside. Just before I open it up, let's have a look at the back. Got an IEC power out inlet. There's a fuse here, and if I pull out this little card, there's a little card there that allows you to switch the voltage range for what country you're in. So that's good. It's all set for what it needs to be. Internal time base. And there's a switch here to flip between the two. You can use the external time base or an internal one. It has option 3 installed, which is the overpower protection. Fan. This is where the screen was missing. There's a screen that goes over that. So I'll have to deal with that. And then what is this one here? Output. I guess you got a rear output for a signal. And then heat sinking. That's all. Alright. Pull the lid off. Have a look at this. The lid has a map on the back, all the different components. They're all labeled. Very, very nice construction on these HP units. Can't say enough good things about them. They're designed to be repaired, and you know, it's unfortunate a lot more manufacturers don't do this. But I can't zoom out far enough, but this is where this cover came from. This is a divider filter assembly. And again, everything's labeled, all the boards are labeled. This is all power supply back here. This is output amplifiers, power transformer, power supply capacitors. This is a rectifier board. If I zoom down here, there's an assembly here that's covered. It's the frequency counter for the front display. And there's meter on to the left here. A meter board for the metering. Everything's DC fan, brushless fan. Power supplies. We got minus 5.2, and the fan drive, that's on this one. Plus 44 and plus 5 volts regulated, and then plus 20, minus 20 regulated for analog circuitry. There's a cover missing here. I don't know if that cover kind of coincides with this decrepit foam that's decomposed and just turning to crumble. But I don't know if there's supposed to be a cover on here. And it said it'd be easy enough to make a cover out of aluminum and just cut a sheet, and you would have to clear these boards, but it wouldn't be hard. And inside here, this is the divider assembly. So we have different stages, and they're all marked on the board. These are megahertz. 2 to 4, 1 to 2, 5 to 1, and then what is that? I can't read that. 4 to 8. So they're doing some dividing here on these. And on this side we have different ranges: 128 to 256, 64 to 128, 32 to 64, and then 16 to 32, 8 to 16. So that's this is what does all the dividing down of the signal from the main oscillator to, and then they switch in dividers here to get whatever frequency you need. A lot of gold in this thing. For what I paid for it, I probably made off like a bandit for all the gold that's in this. I'm not going to scrap this. I'm going to get this working. So, okay, so here's the bottom cover. Take this off and have a look. And again, it's the same thing. Everything's labeled. I got a little block diagram of here how it works, the RF flow. A3 is the RF oscillator. It's a tuned oscillator that's cavity tuned, and then it goes through dividers 8, 10, and 26, and then the attenuator for the outputs. Everything's labeled here with their maps. on what piece is what. Let's have a look inside. It's quite a feast for the eyes. These HP units are incredibly built. So this is our tuned cavity main oscillator. As I crank, let's see, I'll show you here. As I crank the front dial, it's an 8 turn, and what it's doing is it's making the cavity change size inside here, and then that in effect changes the oscillator frequency. Attenuator switch on the left here. Everything seems to be working. Now this little assembly here on front, this is where the gears are broken, and I can see I have cracked gears here as well. This switch here for the peak deviation, there's a switch on this card. It's a rotary switch, and then there's a switch on this card. And these gears transmit the rotation to those different switches. So they got to be aligned. Now this knob, can't show you when you can't see. This knob is actually a shaft that goes straight through to this. And I can't get it to move. Like I said, I don't want to force it. Let's dig a little deeper into this. If I rock the switch back and forth, I can see the shaft wants to move here, and then there's a plastic coupler, an insulated coupler, and this part of the coupler is not turning at all. So I think this part is seized. It doesn't want to turn, and I can't get it to turn by hand at all. There's no play at all, and I think maybe the grease is petrified or seized up. I'm not sure. So, but I think this part here is the range switch selector in it, and if I flip the unit over, we'll have a look at that. Alright, so what I've done is I removed all the screws from this board, and we're going to lift this board out. It's sitting on a riser card. Let's lift this board out. We're going to set it aside because what we want to look at is underneath. Look at that, it's beautiful. The gold on this is incredible. What I need to do is get this off. If I can find my screwdriver. Just bear with me, I'm going to take this cover off. So to remove this cover, I had to remove the power supply boards. I just want to have a look at these power supply boards. This is the plus minus 20. And got that beautiful gold on there. Made in the USA. It's got a couple of LEDs for power on status. It's got a fuse, 2 adjustments. Very nicely built. It doesn't get any better than this. This is a plus 5 volts and plus 44.6 volts card. So we got 2 regulators on here. Same thing. We got 2 fuses, 1 for each supply. We've got 2 adjustments and a power good LED for each one. Very nice tantalum capacitors. And here is the fan control board. This side is fan control, and this side is the negative 5.2 volts. Again, we have fuse, 10 turn pot for adjusting, and LED for status. Very, very nice. Very beautiful construction. Doesn't get any better than this. Okay, so let's lift this off. And what is it? Okay, it's cavities, and they have fingers on it to make a connection and seal off the cavities. Now this is the range board. It switches between the ranges. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 switches, and they are the length of the card, and they slide back and forth like this, and there's gold contacts on each one, and you see these 6 black things sticking up from underneath. Those are the ones that come from that box that I was looking at from the other side. So for whatever reason, there's nothing here that's jammed up. Everything's free, and it looks like it can move. So I'm not going to concern myself with this at all. But I do want to take that box out and take it apart and find out why it's jammed and it's not rotating. I have a feeling if I can free that box up, this thing will work, because those gears are not broken to the point where they are falling apart. So let's look at taking that box apart. It looks like they push, there's 6 pins that come up from that range selector, and they just flow through from the bottom. Okay, so there's really nothing we need to do here. I could probably put this back together, but I'll leave it open because I'll need to adjust these. And you know, it probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of deox on all these slides, just so that we get good connection. They're all gold plated, and I expect they'll be good condition, but we don't know. All right, so I disconnected these 2 lines, and I need to disconnect this power lead. So let's okay. Now it's just a matter of taking out 4 screws. The screwdriver doesn't fit in there. I need a smaller one. A lot of screws are missing on this, and taken loose or missing. I think somebody attempted a repair, probably looked at it. Maybe they thought they were in over their head, gave up. I don't know. It's hard to say. These lock washers you really have to keep an eye on them, because they fall down inside, and then, yeah. So let's get these screws out. Now it should just lift out. I think it's just a cover. Let's see if we can, yeah, we can get this cover off. This line's in the way. Okay. All right, and there it is. See, this does not want to turn. It's frozen. And what it does is a shaft with these eccentric cams, and each cam has a follower that follows the groove that's cut into the plastic cam. And what that does is it switches in each range depending on how the switch is positioned. This is not turning at all, and I can't get anything to move here. I think these bushings are totally seized up. So if I can take this apart, I don't know if I can take this shaft out as a unit and service these bearings. Alright, so after fighting with it for an hour and then finding out, having disconnected everything from that card, that this will not fit through the chassis because they didn't stamp enough room to allow for these 2 bushings to squeak through. It was just like a 0.5 millimeter too less to get this whole assembly out, down, and through the chassis. So we have to work on it from above, from here. Where did I put that screw? I put one here. Is that it? Yes, that's it. Now I think we can lift off this whole assembly right from here, and these black cam followers should come up with it. Now if I can get something a little bit of a pry bar, something like this. Just want to pry on the shaft. And it won't allow me because my screwdriver is too long. It's either too long or too short. Let's try a small screwdriver. It should pop up. No, there's a lot of force there. And a bigger screwdriver. There we go. It's like it was glued in place. Okay, so let's get this. Okay, that's definitely our problem. These two bushings are frozen onto the shaft and that won't turn. So we're going to have to take that apart, clean that and free it up and re-lubricate it. Wow, I can't turn either one of them. They're just frozen on there. Okay, so I'll have to pull those off somehow. I'll take this coupler off and then we'll get that bushing out. So after much fighting I got it out. I had to spread the pins on each of the cam followers and just to get it to disengage from the cam. It wasn't the favorite method, but it worked. You risked breaking a cam follower and then you got a real problem on your hands. How do you repair that? So anyways, this is the cam set. There's 6 cams in here. They're identified A, B, C, D, E, F, and they go on the shaft in that order. There is a, what looks like a gear here that's for riding up against a detent to give this a clunk, 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 you know, like the old channel changers. And then there's a stop so that it can only go so far. And that would be our end of the range. So look at these bearings. They completely frozen on there. And that green grease isn't even grease anymore. It's some kind of cake. So let's try taking this off. And I'm not really worried about the alignment because we'll do all the alignment on this setup when we get it back installed. I think it's just a matter of positioning the knob in the right position. Just so it matches with the range that it's selected. So it shouldn't be too hard. Okay. How are we going to get that off? Oh. Wow, look at that grease. It's just nasty. So I'm just going to use some electrocontact cleaner. Look at how it just eats that stuff right up. I wonder if these come off. Better not. Clean all this grease off. Oh, that's the way it should be. Look at that, it's free. It's still sticky though. More cleaning. Try this. Yeah, that's a lot better. Okay, some lubrication, some modern stuff, not from the 1950s. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, let's do the other side. This one's even worse. Oh my God. Come on. I don't know what kind of green grease they used here, but it's no good. It's probably some special military grease. But it went completely hard. This shaft has burrs on it, I think. It's from those stupid set screws. Don't feel anything. Okay, good. Back bearing's a little more stiffer because that's the one that's I'm not worried about it. It's a lot better than what it was. Okay, I'll put this back in and try and get it all set up. All right, things are looking up. Okay, so my switch is now free. You can see I can move it through the full range. Before I couldn't even twist it. It's working now, even though it feels it probably could use a lubrication. And I don't know if you can see that, this crack on this gear. See that? It's clear gear is completely split, and but it's still hanging in there. So I might have to do something about that. I don't understand why they have to have. Anyways, we'll deal with that. I might wrap that with a wire just to keep it from splitting further. So let's move this switch to the lowest range from 500 kilohertz to 1 megahertz. And let's put this in place. This is spinning free. Oops. So what I want to do is spread these. Sorry, my hand's in the way. Get that one. Just going to be very careful with these. It's hard to do with a camera in front of me. If I do it this way, you can probably see better. Yeah. Oh well, I got one in. Let's keep trying here. 2, 3. There we go. Okay. See, now as I rotate the cam, all those different switches activate or deactivate. So I got this set to the lowest band. I need to set this to the lowest band and put our coupler back in. They should be 90 degrees from each other. They're not. Okay, I'm going to have to get my Allen key back here. Okay, let's loosen these two. Let's loosen this one. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's a stop there. That's a stop there. Just going to have to lift this out for a bit. That's a stop there. That's a stop there. Tighten it and lock it. And it should be Get a lid on there. And 4 screws. Okay, the cover's all screwed down. Just one final test. Everything seems to be working normal. Got all my ranges. And switches, there's 2 switches here. They should be aligned with the position. Everything's good. So I can just put the rest of it back together now. So I was putting this thing all back together, and I figured, well, since I got it apart here, I might as well lubricate some stuff. So I've been lubricating these shafts, and I'm going to get to these shafts here and lubricate this as well, just to make it free up and feel like it's moving a little better. But then I ran into a problem. I figured I'd look at this fine-tuning, why it wasn't working. And it was connected. It was connected to the shaft. And as you turn it, the nut was moving back and forth. Okay, everything looks good on the outside. But then I decided to pull it apart and see why it wasn't moving. So I took this out. And this little flag here, it sits inside the chamber. You can go through this hole. And there's a RFI gasket on here as well. Where did I put it? Little RFI gasket. But this little flag goes into the chamber, and it affects the tuning of the chamber itself, because this is a resonant cavity. And as I turn this little flag isn't moving at all. So I'm like playing around with it, and it clicks into 2 different positions. That one and that one. And that's not working. But then if I put it in the middle somewhere, you can see the flag's now turning. And that would, oh, it clicked in there. See, it drops into the, maybe it's fixed now, I don't know. But for whatever reason, this is disconnected inside. So let's open this up, have a look inside. Put this, make some room for this. I figured I might as well address this before I put it all back together. I'm going to have to spend oh, this screw's tight. I'm going to have to spend a lot of time searching for screws, because this thing came with a lot of screws missing from all the covers and cavities and stuff. I think somebody's poking around here and here before, and they gave up on it, and they couldn't be bothered to put the screws back. Okay, so what's going on here? We got another gasket. What is going on inside here? That is weird. I guess if it goes too far, it's got to be centered. It's got to be centered. That was too far. Okay. So from there, it didn't even move that time. I'm gonna take this apart and lubricate it, because this grease here is all dried up. And it's got a spring in here too. There's a spring in there, and that provides pressure to push up against that little pinion. And there's a sector, it's not even gear, it's just a flat surface that the pinion rides on, and it just relies on friction to move this flag. So I'm going to take this apart and do some cleaning here. This is, yeah, I think the grease is part of the problem here. It's just really sticky. Well, that one wasn't even tight. This one here. Okay, it's coupling coming off. Let's get a screwdriver. Remove this. Alright, and we can take that nut off. All that nut does is it provides a stop for both ends of the... Now I want to get in here, this grease is all dried up in here. I want to get this off, and but first I have to remove this assembly. I think we can remove this spring. Better screwdriver than that. Just glued in there. Okay, there's our cap. Here's our spring. And there's a little bearing in there. Look at that, eh? Is that a ball bearing in there? Very well may be. Now I want to remove this sectored gear. It's not really a gear, it's a sectored piece of metal. So the alignment of this flag goes with the tip of this edge of this here. So that's my alignment. Gotta remember that. But I do need to remove this set screw and just pull this whole shaft out, and then I can relubricate everything and put it back together. So let's see if we have even a key that small. I think we got lucky. Another one. Well, that one wasn't tight. Okay, so this comes right out now. And that is a little ball bearing in there. Can you see that? Amazing. The build quality of this thing is phenomenal. The amount of effort they put into constructing this and engineering it and designing it, the materials they used were phenomenal. Let's put that back. I don't want that out. Okay, you don't want to fight me now? Okay, let's clean this up and then we'll get it back together. I need to... The main thing is this bushing here was... let's get that bearing out. Okay, this bushing here was seized up with old grease, and it's probably that same green grease they used on the other range switch. Right, it's looking a lot better. Alright, I think that's clean. The bushing's clean. Now we need to remove this E-clip and pull the rest of the shaft out. Be very careful with E-clips. Look at how greasy that is. If they fly across the room, you better have a supply of replacements. See, that's stuck in there. That was... Okay, we can clean this up now. It's sticky. Oh, there's a shim there. You gotta be careful of that. Shim. You're keeping track of where all the parts go, eh? These Q-tips are not cooperating. The glue they used to hold the cotton on is disintegrating as soon as I put cleaner on it. They're just cheap dollar store. But I think we're good. Okay, let's just reassemble. I'm going to be using my synthetic grease for everything. So let's start with the beautiful. Okay, we got a shim. And then we have an E-clip. This one was filthy. Let's clean it. If we can get our shim to seat properly, we can put our E-clip on. There we go. Get it into the groove. There we go. There. Okay. It's done. Now we can assemble the rest of this. Let's see here. Where is the nut? Where'd the nut go? Right here. And the other E-clip. And then we need our coupler. Great. Now we can reassemble the other side. This still feels sticky. I'm going to clean this some more. All right. Oops. Okay, we need our gear. Oh. What am I missing here? Got a spring in the end cap. I think that's it. Just a matter of putting this back together. How am I supposed to tighten that? I forgot lubrication. All right. Perfect. Okay. Well, it wants to move now. It wasn't that free before. Okay, let's just tighten it down and get this put back together. Perfect. The problem is if this little coupling mechanism down there slips, then the flag gets out of position, and if it goes too far, it drops off the edge of the little sector thing that it's supposed to ride upon. I don't understand why they didn't put a little keeper or fence there so that it can't go past it, but it's working now. I'm going to, it goes from 90 degrees, it goes a full 90 degrees here. I think that's the way it's supposed to be, so I'm going to leave that alone. I'm just going to lock this with some paint or something, this cover, and then we're going to reinstall this. I think we're good. It's moving free now. Okay, let's put the cover on. Need my gasket. Look at the detail. He even like countersunk the plate here so they could use flatheads and screws. It's unbelievable. the detail to the construction they'd made on this thing. They didn't spare any expense. Yeah, well, you can tell that just by the amount of gold they used in this. They had no limitations on budget, it looked like. There it is, repaired. Goes a full 90 degrees. Okay, I'll reinstall this. Alright, so I got the oscillator back installed. I got all the plumbing connected. I guess all I need to do now is reinstall cards and put the knobs back on, then we'll give her a test and see how it works now. I think I expect it to fully have full control over the frequency now that we have a range switch working and we have our fine-tune adjust working. Still don't even know if this thing puts out an output yet, so let's connect it all up, put the boards back in like I said, and fire it up, see what we got. Alright, power's connected, and let's turn it on. We got something messed up here. Our power supplies are going. Just getting random numbers on the frequency counter. And no. Still getting power output. Okay, so we still got a problem here. Our counter is not working. And I don't believe I touched anything with the counter. All of our boards are in place. All the power supplies were working. Let's flip it over one more time. Alright, so we're definitely experiencing a problem with the counter now. The counter is locked on this display and it won't change. Even though when I tune the thing, I can hear different read relays clicking in and out. Can hear that. I have a feeling the oscillator is working. I have a feeling everything else is working because I am getting a signal output, and when I turn it, crank it up, I get a reduced peak power, so that's all working. I have a feeling the counter is gone kaput on me, so let's pull the counter out, and it looks like somebody's been in here before because there's of course screws missing. So let's pull this cover off. I gotta pull this knob. Hang on. Alright, I've got this front glass to come off. It's aluminum. Front glass, it's got a RFI shield on it. Clean all that up. Now we need to get into this counter. Let's remove it entirely from the chassis before we open it up. That's if I can do this, because I think it's connected with plumbing underneath. Actually, let's pull the lid off first. There are screws missing here, so somebody's been in here. Let's just pull off some of these screws and have a look inside. Maybe there's something that fell apart when I was flipping it over. Let's pull all these screws out. Alright, I think I got all the screws. Let's try lifting this up. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. I know these switches will need a cleaning. Let's go a little deeper into this. Let's take this card off. I should actually just remove the whole assembly rather than trying to do it here. This is part of the fun of exploring a new piece of test gear. That should just pull right up. There we go. Here's our counter. Don't see anything that's going on here. I did notice that I had, when I first powered this unit up, I had no fan, and I was poking around looking at stuff, and what I did is I pulled out the power supply cards and then reseated them, and then the fan started working. So I have a feeling there's a lot of that going on right now. Different things with, even with this meter board. I'll bet you if I pull it out and reseat it, my meter might start working again. So it's there's nothing visually wrong with any of these boards. Everything's perfect. The build quality of this just doesn't get any better. HP was really top-notch stuff back in the day. It didn't get better than this. So I'll just try and figure out what's going on here. Put this back together and I'll look at this LED display. So cool. I'm going to put it back together and see if we can get it to fire up and work. Okay, I'm just going to show you a few things here. I got it connected to a scope. We're going to turn it on. And we saw a little bit of sine wave there when I first clicked it. I have the RF output turned off, so it shouldn't be kicking out a signal when it's turned off. Let's turn it on. Now I got the range set between 500 kilohertz and 1 megahertz. If I switch the range switch, you can see that it's working. We're getting their different ranges. If I fine tune it, or not fine tune it, but tune the frequency, you can see the oscillators working as it should. Output attenuation seems to be fine. Variable is working. Everything seems to be working on that side. I do have AM modulation, so I turn that on, and I'll turn up the AM modulation. You see it kind of goes flatline there. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe it's over modulating. And my meter is actually working with it's actually working with an adjustment here. Okay, shut off that. Well, we don't have, I turn on the FM modulation. I don't have anything there. It seems to be dead. Completely dead, the FM. So we might have some troubleshooting to do on that end of things. But everything else is working except for the counter now. And I don't understand why the counter is misbehaving. I didn't even touch anything with the counter. So I'm going to take a look underneath and make sure I got all the plumbing connected to the right spots. I'm pretty sure I do. It's pretty goof proof. You know, the things are bent and cut to the exact length they need to be, so you can't really goof them up and install them in the wrong spot. So I'm going to check it over again. Okay, so I figured out my goof up here. It was my mistake. During the time I was flipping this thing around, it weighs about 50 pounds, so it's pretty heavy. So when I was flipping it over to do service on both sides, I accidentally flipped the switch from the internal time base to the external one, and that's caused the frequency counter not to work. So I clicked the switch, it's working again. So it was just user error and everything's working good. I got it on the low range, 0.5 megahertz to 1 megahertz, and I can tune in my frequencies. And the fine tuning does work now. It didn't work before, which is very nice. Okay, and then the phase lock, if I click it in, it locks it. If I try to go outside the phase lock, it freaks out and set it again. So everything appears to be working. A lot of these switches are dirty though. They're really flaky. Like for example this one here. It works when it wants to work. They need a good cleaning. External. Yeah, so I think I'm going to leave that for another episode here. I'm going to call this done for this week. I've pretty much accomplished everything I wanted to do. I repaired the seized up range switch, and I repaired the fine tune. Wasn't working. And then I tested it, and it is putting out a signal. So, but we still have work to do. We still got lots of work to do on this. Still haven't figured out why I have no meter indication. I got no meter indication on the output, and we have to figure that one out. It doesn't like that overload. But we're going to get that. We're going to get this cleaned up, and it's looking good. Looking good. So I'm going to leave this. Let's try a different range here. All the ranges are working. Just very happy with this. Let's do the highest range. What's going on here? So this is 90 megahertz. This should be okay, 105. No, that's see, we got some problems here going on with the counter on the don't really know what it's measuring. But we should be between 128 and 256. So this thing still has a long ways to go. I'm not sure what it's measuring there on the higher ranges, but the other lower ranges work. So I'm going to leave it at that. Alright, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for part 2.